This is Oman News, live from the news center of the Sultanate of Oman Television. Good evening. First, the headlines. With the royal blessings, an international workshop on the practical implications for Salalah recommendations for the management of parks and archaeological sites will be organized in the upcoming period. The Sultanate affirms that it will remain a supporter for peace and to work on resolving disputes with peaceful ways and not to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. And the election committees in the wilayas are to announce tomorrow the preliminary lists of voters for the 9th term of the Shura Council members' elections. Good evening once again, and thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has sent a cabal of greetings to His Excellency President Carlos Alvarado of Costa Rica on his country's independence anniversary. His Majesty the Sultan also sends a cabal of greetings to His Excellency President Daniel Ortega of Nicaragua on his country's independence anniversary. His Majesty also sent a cabal of greetings to His Excellency President Jimmy Morales of Guatemala on his country's independence anniversary. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos sends a similar cabal to His Excellency President Nayib Bukele of Salvador on his country's independence anniversary. And His Majesty the Sultan sends a cabal of greetings to His Excellency President Juan Orlando Hernandez of Honduras on his country's independence anniversary. With the royal blessings, the Office of Advisor of His Majesty the Sultan for Cultural Affairs organized in cooperation with the International Council on Monuments and Sites and Global Heritage Culture in UNESCO an international workshop on the practical implications for Salalah recommendations for the management of parks and archaeological sites during the period from the 16th to 19th of September 2019 in the Wilaya of Nizwa in the Governorate of Ad-Dakhiliyah. The implementation of this workshop comes to stress the role of Omani cultural heritage with all its forms and various types being global and human heritage of exceptional values. The workshop will be held under the auspices of His Excellency Nasser bin Hamoud Al-Kindi, Secretary General of Royal Court Affairs. The Sultanate affirmed that it will remain a supporter for peace as being one of its values and principles of its foreign policy. In a speech delivered by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Awad Al-Hassani, Sultanate's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York before the high-level meeting on the culture of peace, he pointed out that peace is a noble goal that the Sultanate seeks to achieve in its relations with other nations. His Excellency also stressed that the Sultanate always called for renouncing violence, not resorting to the use of force, and working to resolve disputes with peaceful ways, in addition to not interfering in the internal affairs of other countries. The election committees in the wilayas will announce tomorrow, Sunday, the primary list of voters for the Shura Council membership election for the 9th term. The announcement will be put in prominent places at the offices of their Excellencies the Walis. The Minister of Interior pointed out that these lists can be accessible via the electronic website of the election. Any interested person may object to the names mentioned in these lists through submitting an application via the website of the election according to Article 31 of Shura Council membership election. The objections shall be submitted to the Committee of Election during 5 days of the announcement date of these lists, explaining the reasons of objections and attached with supportive documents. The committee will issue its decisions on the objections in 10 days from the following day of the end of period stipulated in the previous text. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. Youths and the Digital World Forum was organized in the Sultanate, which included a special platform for awareness workshop for children. The event came to coincide with the works of International Conference on Child Protection from Mistreatment and Negligence, which convenes for the first time in the Sultanate. The forum discussed the importance of cybersecurity, while the children platform focused on issues related to electronic extortion and ways to protect children from malpractices in digital world. The inflation rate in the Sultanate witnessed an increase during last August by 44% compared to the same period of last year. The statistics issued by the National Center for Statistics and Information showed that the increase of inflation is attributed to the increase in the prices of foodstuff, education, water, electricity, housing and other services. The number of commercial activities in various governorates of the Sultanate that are recorded by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry in the second quarter of this year reached around 199,227, with an increase by 26.1% compared to last year. According to the statistics, the commercial activities in the second quarter of the current year were centered in the governorate of Muscat by 36.5%. followed by the governorate of Dhofar by 14.3%, and then the governorate of North Al-Batina by 13.9%. The Minister of Commerce and Industry called on individuals and companies with innovations in the field of construction products related to modern and future construction techniques to register their innovations in the Department of Intellectual Property so as to protect their rights. This will contribute in the implementations of research and innovation projects in this field, as well as preparing the strategy for technologies and sustainability. The total bank credit of the commercial banks in the Sultanate by the end of June 2019 amounted to more than 21 billion Omani riyals. The statistics by the Central Bank of Oman show that the personal loan sector obtained 8.4 billion riyals. The construction sector obtained 2.7 billion riyals. Meanwhile, the electricity, water, gas sector obtained 1.2 billion riyals. And now for the international news. African heads of state and envoys today arrived for a state funeral for Zimbabwe's founding president Robert Mugabe, whose burial has been delayed for at least a month until a special mausoleum can be built for his remains. President Emmerson Mnangagwa arrived early to greet guests, including former South African presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki, Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde, and Mozambique's President Philip Nyusi. Crowds were dancing and singing at the National Sports Stadium in Harare. The services and viewing of the body of Mugabe, who died last week in Singapore at the age of 95, comes after the Mugabe family and Mnangagwa announced that this burial will be postponed until a new resting place for his body can be constructed at the National Heroes Acre Monument. More than 10 African leaders and several former presidents are attending today's ceremony at the 60,000 capacity stadium, which is across the road from Heroes Acre and national burial sites for top officials of Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF party, who contributed to ending white colonial rule. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres flew to the Bahamas yesterday to express deep solidarity with its people and to raise awareness of the need for international help following the devastation of Hurricane Dorian. Guterres told reporters that the Category 5 hurricane, the worst ever to hit the Bahamas, left behind a damage in billions of dollars that can only be covered if rich countries contribute to climate and development financing. Guterres said they must improve access to development financing in cases like the Bahamas. He strongly supported the proposals to convert that into investments in resilience. Dorian led the death of at least 50 people and the displacement of thousands. Guterres visited evacuation centers and greeted aid workers in the capital of Nassau. In Nairobi, health authorities yesterday started administering doses of the world's only licensed malaria vaccine to young children in Kenya in rural areas with high transmission rates. Kenya became the third African country to introduce the vaccine after Malawi and Ghana. The aim is to reach about 360,000 children per year across the three countries. Malaria is a top killer in many African countries. According to the World Health Organization, the region accounted for 92% cases worldwide and 93% of malaria deaths worldwide in 2017. The parasitic diseases kills about 435,000 people in Africa every year, most of them children under 5. WHO said the vaccine is the first and only vaccine to significantly reduce malaria in children. It took GlaxoSmithKline and partners more than 30 years to develop the vaccine at a cost of around $1 billion. GSK is donating up to 10 million vaccine doses in the current vaccination initiatives. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez today visited the country's flood-stricken southeastern regions as the death toll rose to 6 and train and air services were disrupted for a third day. Since Wednesday, areas there suffered some of the heaviest daily rainfall on record, causing chaos on the roads, cutting public transport and prompting rivers to burst their banks. Flash floods swept away cars and swamped homes in the regions of Valencia, Murcia and eastern Andalusia. The latest fatality was a middle-aged man whose body was found by police in a field at a hamlet near the city of Orihuela in the Valencia. 5 people died in separate accidents in the previous 2 days as they tried to cross flooded roads in cars, including a man whose vehicle got stuck in a tunnel yesterday in the center of the coastal city of Almeria. After observing the damage from a helicopter flying over the city of Orihuela in the region of Valencia, Sanchez visited the command center for emergency operations. Spain's King Philip lamented the loss of and the damage. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. With the royal blessings and international workshop on the practical implications for Salalah recommendations for the management of parks and archaeological sites will be organized in the upcoming period. The Sultanate affirms that it will remain a supporter for peace and to work on resolving disputes with peaceful ways and not to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. And the election committees in the wilayas are to announce tomorrow the preliminary list of voters for the 9th term of the Shura Council members' elections. And with that, we do conclude this news bulletin brought to you live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman television. From the entire news team and myself, we thank you for joining us. Wish you a pleasant evening and good night.